Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Ishani, and because it is Watercolor Month and Altenew is celebrating it with an amazing blog hop, I thought why not show you some cool ways to use your watercolors with some techniques. I'm going to use Altenew's Artist 24 pan set watercolors, and though I made a swatch earlier for these colors, I realized I wanted a swatch which could fit in the tin itself. One thing that I love about these colors is that the small pans have the colors written on them. This was the order that came originally. I have not changed the order of the colors, and I wrote the names of the colors on the strip of watercolor paper that I have, so it corresponds to the color just next to it. I start with misting it with some water, and then I start with the deep blue sea. Then I clean my water brush, and the next color is lapis lazuli. And as I'm putting some saturated colors, I'm also watering them down. Likewise, I get all my colors. These colors actually correspond to the Altenew ink family names. Let me also tell you about this awesome card making success summit that is happening from 28th July to 31st. Have you got your tickets? You can attend the summit absolutely free, or you can choose to grab the VIP All Access Pass at any time and take advantage of all the amazing bonuses that come with it. The VIP All Access Pass is currently being offered at a special price, but it will disappear on Thursday once the summit starts on 28th July. So don't forget to grab your free ticket from the link in the description box below, or head over to my blog to learn more. And as soon as you're registered, more information will be sent straight to your inbox. I hope to see you there. There was a time when I didn't make swatches, but since the time I swatched my colors and inks, it's been a game changer for me. I appreciate colors more. I have stopped buying new inks and colors, and there is hardly a chance of repeat purchase. So if you've not been swatching, I highly recommend that you do it. And now it's time to get your brushes and make your beautiful watercolored artwork. But if you're like me, a little intimidated by watercoloring, or for days you're feeling lazy, or maybe you're like me who loves to stretch their supplies, I've got some fun ideas for you to use your watercolors. If you watched my previous videos, you know that I love trying different techniques with embossing folders, and I'm using this embossing folder from Altenew's Hello Beautiful Craft Your Life kit. And you can use any floral or other design you want. I'm using a watercolor paper, and here is my shortcut technique to watercoloring with your embossing folders. I take some water in a brush and wet the well area, like the one with the depression of the embossing folder. Not too much water, but just to make it a little wet before we apply watercolors to it. And then I take watercolors. I'm taking cherry blossom first, giving the flowers a pink color. Then I add a little white to the outer sides of the petal. And I'm going to color like this all my 3 flowers of the embossing folder. For the leaves, I'm going to do the same. I'm taking various greens from my watercolor pans and color the grooves of the embossing folder. Just make sure that your watercolor doesn't dry up before you put the paper in it. I'm taking a heavy watercolor cardstock and I put the watercolor paper in the embossing folder, and remember not to flip it. Just run it through the die cutting machine like so that the watercolors do not run over. And then when you get it out, you get an artsy look on the embossed images. I'll just clean the embossing folder with the wet wipe, or you could just run it under a tap and take off the color from the embossing folder. On my embossed watercolored panel, I have some spots which are uncolored. So I add some colors to the embossed images You can add more depth by adding more color to the flowers. Isn't it a quick way to add colors? I've seen many amazing artists that I follow. They painstakingly color the embossed images, and I love that. But here's my cheat way to do the same. I hope you like this cheater way to watercolor your embossed images. Let's make a card out of it. I like to keep my cards clean and simple, but I love to add texture too. For that, I'm taking Altenew simple shape cover dies, and I've cut out a white paper with it to imitate a trellis. This die gives lovely triangle shapes that can be added to give some lovely designs too. But here I'm going to use it without the triangles. I adhere it with the white glue and then add my flowers. I've actually cut the flowers from the paper, which also gives me more ways to use your embossed images by cutting them out. The original orientation of the flowers is from the right side, but I'm going to change it and adhere it on the left. For the sentiment, I am using this beautiful Hello die, which is part of the Primrose Blossom Crafter flower set that I cut from black cardstock, and for some lovely sheen, I am heat embossing it with clear embossing powder. I put the die cut on the ink pad directly and press it to get the sticky ink on it. Then I am going to put clear embossing powder over it and heat set it. For some more dimension, I'm going to repeat the process once again so I get a beautifully clear embossed hello sentiment that can be put as a sentiment on my card. And then I adhere this scripty hello on my floral trellis. I love the quick way to get color on my flowers that even looks like you took a lot of effort to color them. I hope you liked it too and would use this technique for your embossing folders. I have the details of the products used in my blog post that will be in the description box below for your ready reference. And my next card is Drama of Watercolors without the stress of watercoloring. You like the sound of it? Let's check it. So what do you do when you don't want to color with watercolors? You make gorgeous backgrounds with them. I've taken watercolor paper for this card and I'm going to make a lovely background. You can straight away apply your color with brush, but if you want only a small area colored, you can use a piece of acetate to give you some organic texture on the paper with watercolors. I'm using sunshine yellow in the center, and I am one lazy person when it comes to using painter's tape to avoid warping. You should definitely do it if you're up to it. I personally feel that heavyweight, good quality paper does not warp much. I'm also not using a lot of water, and also drying the paper between the layers of watercolors helps. And if this doesn't work, I die cut my paper, and as I do so, the pressure of the plates evens it out. So yeah, you learn one more way to be lazy from me. I'm using Seashore and the darker color Cool Summer Night on the outermost areas. To make my background more interesting, I will make some bokeh by lifting the wet color off the paper with an absorbent cloth. This will give a quick watercolor background with bokeh effect. Have you tried using salt on your watercolors or cling wrap? Well, you can try all these different ways to get more texture on your watercolored background and use your watercolors differently. Well, for the card, I'm using Paint a Flower African Daisy stamp set by Altenew. I love this set, and you can have a look at my blog or Instagram account for the different ideas that I have with this set. I stamped this with permanent black ink, though it's recommended for alcohol ink coloring. If you heat emboss it with clear embossing powder, it is perfect for watercoloring too. I'm going to cut off the image to get only 2 daisies. So I stamp and heat emboss them and cut them out with scissors. The watercolored background has also dried up and you can see the blotted areas. To get some more effect of bokeh, I am using white pigment ink with Dauber. You could also use small stencils with round shapes cut but I think a dauber works perfectly. Now I'll cut off this panel with the deckled edge die from Mix and Match Dies by Altenew. And for the daisies, let's do some simple coloring. I love white daisies, and white daisies will look perfect with the dark background that we've made. So I'm coloring the leaf of this daisy, and for the flower, I will use a little diluted black color to add depth to the flowers. And also there is this white spot that I will color with the same colors as my background because my cutting skills are not very good. For the sentiment I am using thanks from the same stamp set, and I will heat emboss it with white embossing powder. I really feel that embossing the sentiment makes them look more pleasant and professionally done. It is an added step and I often forget, but then I try to remember whenever I'm stamping my sentiment. Also, I'm going to darken the edges of the die cut with emerald ink, which is a darker green ink, so the focus goes more to the flowers and imitates how we get the portrait mode photos on our phones. I adhere the panel with double-sided foam tape on a white top folding card base, and I do the same for the flowers too. I finish off the card with some half pearls, and ta-da! Perfect way to use your watercolors when you're not up to doing detailed watercoloring. You could also use your reinkers for the similar technique. I would love to know if you try this. The next technique is with tissue paper, and here I have a tissue paper cut and folded so that I have 4 plies. Tissue paper are very delicate, so when coloring with watercolors, I recommend adding some more plies or layers so that if one is damaged, the other remains. And I'm taking the same watercolors and I'm using some of the blues for coloring my tissue paper. You can use any color combination you'd like. I wanted to make a masculine card, so drifted towards this color palette. After the whole tissue gets colored, I will let it dry, and as it is drying, I thought of trying another color palette for an evening sky look with purple, pink and orange and yellows. And I think I can make a silhouette card with a black die cut over it. And let's get ahead and see how the papers look after they dry. Do you see how beautiful and vibrant it looks? I take a white card panel and like how we do decoupage, I adhere this tissue paper on the white cardstock. You can use any glue. I am using a decoupage glue for it. I apply the glue on the cardstock and then adhere one ply on it and then another layer of glue over that, and then put my paper and smoothen it out with some more glue. And though I don't worry about smoothing much because it is the texture that we want from the tissue. So the folds, they do not matter. They will look lovely in these colors when we use them on our card. I do similar thing with the blue tissue paper on a white cardstock. For making the card, I'm using fine frame diamonds and flowing foliage dies, and I cut them out from white cardstock. Sorry that I missed recording that part. Also for the sentiment, I am using signature dies that I've cut out from the same tissue background, but I will use the white die cut because I think it will look better on the card. To assemble the card, I am using a soft craft colored card base and I will adhere the diamond shape with foam tape on it. And then with glue, I will adhere the leaf and the thanks die cut. I hope you liked this technique, and If you're like me, I'm sure there's some tissue paper which you've been holding for some time. Take it out and use your watercolors with them. Let's go ahead and check out the last card that I have for you. Are you enjoying this video? If you are, please do consider subscribing and check out my Instagram and blog for more inspiration. The last technique which we're going to do is an evergreen technique called by different names, but I love to call it Joseph's coat technique like many old timers. But many of you may also know this as trapped ink technique. I'm using yellow and pinks and reds and greens for coloring my Bristol smooth cardstock. I chose this cardstock for the reason that because we'll be doing some ink blending, this cardstock gives great results when it comes to ink blending. I know the way I'm coloring, you may think a toddler may color better, but there is a reason for this madness because I want our flowers in red, and though I missed recording coloring the green underneath, I will have the green for the leaves. I'm using brush art floral stamp, which is unfortunately retired, but you could use any solid stamp, and Altenew's watercolor rose stamp or vase filler stamp set are perfect for this technique. Also, you could use the second or third stamp from the layering stamp sets like Build a Flower series by Altenew. They'll be perfect as well. You may have seen this technique with dye inks, but you must definitely try with watercolors also. I stamp my images with Versamark and heat emboss with clear embossing powder. And as soon as one layer is melted, I put some more powder over it and heat it more. And then repeat it 3 to 4 times so this Joseph's coat is thick and traps the watercolors well. Also remember to keep brushing away the stray specks of embossing powder between each application of the powder. I will do the same for the leaves and the sentiment as well. And with so much of heat embossing, you get this shiny embossing and we have our flower trapped inside. Now it's time to reveal the real magic, for which I have taken sapphire ink. I have tried this technique with pigment ink as well, but I have not been successful with a very crisp image. So I recommend using dye ink to blend around the embossed image for a dramatic result. Many use black ink, but I think blue will look lovely with the pinks underneath the flower. I ink blend around my flower, and then when I rub the ink off the flower, you get this absolutely lovely result. I use the same mix and match deckled edge die to cut the panel, and I adhere it on a top folding white card base. And here is our Joseph's coat floral card ready. I hope you enjoyed these techniques and will give your watercolors some extra love this month. Don't forget to hop for amazing prizes by Altenew. The link to my blog is in the description below. And I hope to see you at the Cardmakers Success Summit. VIP All Access Pass is currently being offered at a special price, but it will disappear on Thursday once the summit starts. So I hope you will check out the link that I have mentioned below to get your passes, and I hope to see you there. Till then, don't forget to check out my other videos for amazing techniques. Thank you very much for stopping by and your time. Bye-bye and happy crafting.